News and stimulating talk. KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Law enforcement have released the identity of the 29-year-old Honeyville woman who died Tuesday morning in a car crash in Logan Canyon, US 89. Breckel Lindauer Cano was driving a white Dodge Caravan towards Bear Lake when the vehicle lost control and spun into the path of a westbound Ford F-350 pickup. Early this morning, Cano's husband, Todd Cano, posted on Facebook that he couldn't believe his wife of 11 years was really gone. He thanked her for being the best mother and wife he could have asked for. Friends and family echoed similar thoughts, posting that Cano was a phenomenal person inside and out. Others described her as kind, impactful, and a beautiful woman in all ways. Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Jason Kendrick said Tuesday's crash occurred around 8 a.m. around milepost 489 near the UDOT state sheds. Despite wearing a seatbelt, Cano sustained fatal head injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. She was reportedly headed to work in Rich County. The crash was originally reported as a head-on collision. Later, troopers determined the truck collided with the front passenger side of the caravan. Cano's 4-year-old daughter was a passenger inside the van when the crash occurred. She was seated directly behind her mother, buckled in a car seat, which UHP troopers believed saved her life. Paramedics transported her to Logan Regional Hospital by ambulance with non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the Ford was also transported to the hospital with minor injuries from the impact of the collision. KBNU News Time is 5:07. KBNU weather for tonight, partly cloudy skies, overnight low around 30. Partly cloudy to mostly sunny skies on Thursday, high temperature in the mid-50s, sunny and around 60 on Friday. 53 has been our high temperature today. It's 52 right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Bring back the sounds you've been missing. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Danes at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Hey, get prepared for the hunting season. Did you remember to bring your hunting gear, your sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry? With their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, they can do any job. And while you're at it, bring in the comforters and blankets and get ready for the colder months ahead. Try Mount Logan Laundry. For a few quarters, you can use their large-capacity washers and dryers and be done in no time. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. They're at the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town.
KBNU News Time is 5:08. The Transportation Security Administration announced Tuesday that in 2 days, 2 loaded firearms were discovered by TSA officers during routine screening of travelers' carry-on luggage at Salt Lake City International Airport. KUTV reports the 2 most recent discoveries of loaded firearms at the airport comes after TSA issued a stark warning earlier in the month that firearm catches at checkpoints set a 20-year record in the first 9 months of 2021. By October 3rd, TSA officers said they had stopped 4,495 total airline passengers from carrying firearms onto their flights, surpassing the previous record of 4,432 firearms caught at checkpoints in the full calendar year of 2019. Salt Lake Airport was in the top 10 airports for firearm discoveries. TSA officials shared that at least 90 firearms were discovered in Salt Lake so far this year, tying with the Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. And dozens of U.S. Marines joined hundreds of Wyoming residents to bid a final farewell at a memorial for Riley McCollum. The 20-year-old was one of 13 U.S. servicemen killed in a suicide bombing as they guarded a gate at a chaotic Kabul, Afghanistan airport during the final U.S. evacuation from that country. Many of the Marines were members of McCollum's unit serving in Afghanistan when he was killed on August 26th. McCollum, a Marine Lance Corporal, grew up, went to school, and enlisted for the Corps in the Jackson Hole area. He was honored during Saturday service, attended by more than 400 people, including Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Charles is dying from COVID-19, not because he has the disease, but because he has to travel 95 miles in an ambulance to the nearest open ICU bed. Yes, his local ICU was just minutes away, but it's full of COVID patients, nearly all of whom haven't been vaccinated. So, if you think you're not hurting anyone by skipping the vaccine, think again. Please, get vaccinated. Find a location at coronavirus.utah.gov.
With a little help from Mother Nature's October snow, Whole Tree Care is slammed, and they're hiring. If you like to work with your hands, give Whole Tree Care a call, 760-6587. They need climbers and groundmen. Call them to clean up your large broken branches and trees, too, or get your trees trimmed before the next snowstorm. So whether you need a job or have a cleanup job for Whole Tree Care to do, call 760-6587. They have a certified arborist, the right equipment, the best cleanup crew, and the most experience. 760-6587.
Thank you for voting Adams Wealth Advisors the gold winner for Best Financial Planner in the Best of Northern Utah competition. Understanding your family, jobs, and goals is how Adams Wealth Advisors will continue to earn your trust.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today. Please see adamswealthadvisors.com for more information on these recent awards.
Thursday edition Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show will be joined by Molly Hemingway, breaking down her latest book all about the aftermath of the 2020 election. It is going to be fantastic. We'll discuss that. Plus, Buck, what else?
We've got a continuing mess at the southern border. Looks like it's going to get worse in the days ahead. We'll find out what the numbers are for these caravans and much more. That's coming up on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I'm Jason Williams. Back to the topic of taxes this hour. Some Halloween events going on this weekend we'll talk about. And then, of course, an opportunity to, we'll probably just talk about taxes. This was an interesting report from the Salt Lake Tribune today. And it led to, understandably, some questions getting asked because it wasn't clear whether this was intended legislative move or whether it was just something that happened, timing, or so they asked what they found. The Salt Lake Tribune started digging through tax numbers, tax breaks the legislature had offered, tax revenue the legislature had moved here, moved there. This is what a good news outlet would do, right? Is have their journalists dig into that on a regular basis because you can glean a lot from that. What they found, though, surprised them. They found that big tax breaks for businesses to locate here in Utah were far less frequent in the last 3 years than they had been for the last 30. And specifically in the last 30 years, the last decade was record-setting for big tax breaks offered to businesses. The Tribune reports, now you can dig into the numbers of these, and the numbers aren't really that informative because they're big dollar amounts, $1 million here, $1 million there. And you have to remember this is an estimated loss of revenue number. If they offer a tax break to a business, when Adobe was looking for a place to locate, Governor Herbert's Office of Economic Development offered them a tax break. And this can be sales, this can be property, this can be a combination of a bunch of different things. But either way, if the business chooses to locate here, they save for a certain period of time, usually not permanent, although it has been occasionally, but usually not a permanent tax break. For 10 years, for example, say, that business will pay a 20% reduced tax rate in this or that arena for 10 years if they choose to locate here and hire people here. I'm a defender of this practice, even though it's controversial. And one of the reasons I'm a defender of this is that it works. I mean, it does actually, it is economic development. The flip side of that, critics, and I think this is a very legitimate criticism, argue that many of these companies don't need the tax break. And will speculate, maybe they would have come here anyway. Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. And it comes down to one of those things where even though I'm a defender of this practice, I'm a defender because everyone else is doing it. If we could, across the board, just every state in the country say, we're not going to do this anymore. If every state stopped doing it, I think that would be the best way forward. Because you're right, these companies don't need it. Microsoft, Amazon is one of the most notable tax break receivers. Amazon does not need a tax break to build a new office building or a warehouse anywhere at all. They're making so much money right now, and probably will continue for the foreseeable future, that even a lofty multi-million-dollar tax break is pittance compared to their annual revenue as a company. So, no, they don't need it, but they can literally locate anywhere. And when they build a warehouse, they sometimes hire upwards of 400 or 500 people. That's a lot of jobs. And so if you can get them to locate in your state for a small loss of revenue that will phase out after 5 or 10 years, and you'll start collecting full revenue from that company, it makes sense. But again, unless you can get every state to stop doing it, it's never going to stop. It's controversial. Here in Logan City, in the mayoral debate right now, incumbent candidate for mayor, Holly Daines, current mayor of Logan City, coming under some fire, city council as well, for a tax break offered to Costco to locate here. Costco is a different beast than Amazon. They're big. They make a lot of money, or they wouldn't be doing it. They probably don't need the tax break, sure. But they absolutely do decide where to go based off of what they're offered. And it's not just, tax breaks, sales tax or property tax breaks that they can get. What Costco looks at a lot of times, and they're very open about this, they look at what a city's willing to invest in infrastructure around a potential location for a Costco. Are you willing to put in a new traffic light because it gets pretty crowded there on Saturdays? Are you willing to widen a road because it gets pretty crowded there on Saturdays? They look at those types of things too, because they want, Amazon doesn't have to worry about this. They're an online company for the most part. Costco is an in-person company. You go there and shop. Now, they do have a website you can buy things off of, but most people go there. And they want that they want that experience to be pleasant. So they're looking for different kinds of kickbacks from cities when they're looking to locate. But a tax break, if they're going to have to front the costs of maybe a new stoplight or even widening a road, offering an emergency lane on a road, things like that leads to the Costco. Maybe there are some other things too, maybe like building up some surrounding wetlands, things like that, where a Costco might be located. They've done all of this before. And if that's offset by even a temporary tax break, that's where they locate. Because Costco knows they can literally go anywhere. If that Costco that is going in Logan and will open in July of 2022 had gone to Preston instead, I guarantee they wouldn't have lost money. And it would have been huge for Preston. I don't know if Preston wants it, just hypothetical example here. Preston might not even.
Could you imagine the traffic on Highway 91 headed north?
But we'd make the drive, right? Every single person in Cache Valley at that point would have a choice between the Costco in Ogden, the Costco in Preston. And we'd make either drive. We're doing it right now. I know more people that drive on a regular basis to the Costco in Ogden than I do people who went to Kmart before it closed. And maybe that's telling.
And that's traversing, Sardine Canyon in the winter.
Sure. And so if you could go to Preston instead, maybe you'd do that. It's a beautiful drive in the springtime. If I had a choice between going south or north in the spring, always going to go north. But, so it's a hypothetical example. I don't know if Preston wanted it. But let's say the Preston was saying, no, come here instead. And they were offering a tax break. And then Logan City wasn't. Well, consumers are still going to make the drive to the Costco in Preston. People would do that. Don't pretend you wouldn't. And all of the revenue, long term, because Costco's not going to be here for just 10 years. It's going to be here until, I don't know, Costco isn't a thing anymore. If that ever happens, maybe it won't ever happen.
Until the next big thing.
The next big thing, right. Some retail chains have been around more than 100 years. Costco could be one of those. So if you have to give up 10 years of revenue, and the concern on this, people aren't getting upset about this because they're, at least not the complaints I hear. People don't complain about this type of thing when their city does it or their county does it or their state does it because they're concerned about the coffers. What they're concerned about is the tax break will be offered to the business. And then to make up that revenue loss, there's going to be a negative impact on the average family or the average individual. Suddenly they're going to see a tax hike. Well, the business gets a tax break. We talked in hour one. It's been avoided for the time being, but property taxes is a good example. They're continuously either being proposed a hike, being proposed. It's either being proposed, the property taxes go up, or it's avoided for the time being, like the county council just did. But property taxes will go up indefinitely. And people worry about that. They worry that, if we're shifting the costs of running business in the city, which we all acknowledge, hopefully we can all acknowledge, costs money. I know some people that say, they shouldn't be doing any of it. Well, I don't know. I like sewers and roads and working traffic lights. Things like that are kind of important to me. And that's just the bare minimum of what a city does. Look at the damage from the recent snowstorm and all of the cleanup costs. Cities are fronting that cost right now. Logan City, I know, in fact, just today at the south end of the valley in Wellsville and Hiram, I saw tree services out, cutting broken limbs. Still today, weeks after the snowstorm, cutting broken limbs and chipping up those limbs, cleaning it all up. People were able to push a lot of this debris out to their front yards. Logan City will be cleaning up this now huge green waste dump at the Willow Park parking lot area. That all comes with a cost, and we all expect our city to do things like that, right? So the revenue is important. It's not a loss of revenue, though, that I think makes people wary of these types of tax breaks to entice businesses in. It's that will be offset by a tax increase on the individual or the family. Well, Costco gets a tax break, and they don't need it. It's absolutely sound reasoning. There's not a flaw in that reasoning. But the reality is, until everyone at the same time stops offering tax incentives for a business to come in, it's going to happen. It's going to have to happen. How much should always be a debate. When should always be a debate. But we should all acknowledge that, again, until everyone stops doing it at the same time, this is a way to attract businesses in. And Costco will employ a fair number of people here in Cache Valley as well. That's not insignificant. It's definitely worth the tax break they got. So back to this statewide story. What's behind this? Why is the state pulling the handbrake on this type of thing? So again, laid out in the story, I'll summarize it. Pretty overly simplified summarization here. I've linked to it. You should go read it so you can see the actual dollar amounts. But shortest version of this. For 30 years, the state of Utah has thrown tax breaks at large corporations left and right with very few questions asked. And as we've discussed on the show many times, very little post-analysis. This was funny. A couple of years ago during legislative committee, someone asked former state lawmaker, current tax commission commissioner, John Valentine, how much money did the state make off of that investment? This was a years old Governor's Office of Economic Development investment in a business to locate here in Utah through a tax hike. And at the time, there was a promise that after the tax break, after the tax break ended after 10 years, the state would generate X amount in extra revenue, far offsetting that 10-year loss in revenue from that one single business locating here. Someone said, how'd that all turn out? What was the ROI that was promised? Did it manifest? And they couldn't answer. And the roof blew off the Capitol, understandably, because Valentine said, I don't know. And then they kept digging, and the Governor's Office of Economic Development said, we don't know. You know, those were the projections and what the very smart people, I'm sure, said at the time would happen, but no one checked. No one checked to see if the state actually benefited from this tax break offered to a large corporation at the time, and there was no follow-through. So there was no analysis of whether this type of thing is actually working, whether it is creating jobs, whether it is boosting the economy. No one knew. They will soon. They've been at it for 2 years now after a legislative mandate in response to not being able to answer those questions. But the short answer, why the state of Utah has put a pause on this type of thing in the last 3 years at least, after, again, about a 30-year free-for-all, the short answer is a combination of the Cox administration, where they want there to be less of a focus on this type of thing, basically betting that the growth in Utah, that the accessibility of higher education in Utah is going to entice businesses in without the tax breaks. Now, that's a huge bet. If they're wrong, it could be a big negative, and you could see, new job growth within a few years quickly reflect that wrong decision. If they're right, the state stops giving away money to large corporations that don't need it, and they come here and employ people anyway. So it's probably worth taking the risk. So that focus of the new Cox administration, different than the Herbert administration and the Huntsman administration before his, combined with the legislature after that, again, 2 years ago, the Governor's Office of Economic Development not being able to say, well, here is our return on investment. Here's what we got for that. Not being able to answer those questions, the legislature about 2 years ago said, all right, we're going to slow this down then for the time being until we can answer these questions. Did we get our investment back? Did it grow the economy? Did it create jobs? Was it worth it for taxpayers to still be paying the full amount while a big corporation got a break, even temporary? Did that pay off for taxpayers? The legislature has said until they have answers to those questions, they're going to be less likely to sign off on these types of things. So statewide, nearly a 60% decrease in tax incentives offered directly through the state and the Governor's Office of Economic Development. That's huge. And again, it's a gamble. It could hurt us economically. We could find out that jobs didn't grow here in Utah over the next few years because of this. We could also, again, find out that large corporations came here and hired people anyway without the tax breaks. It'll be a really interesting experiment, but it is and has been quietly underway for a couple of years now here in Utah. A 60% decrease in state-generated tax breaks offered to corporations to locate their business here in Utah over the last 3 years after 30 years of setting records in number of tax breaks like that. Check out the analysis with the dollar amounts, totals, and all of that at the Salt Lake Tribune website. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
Dr. Josh Redd, chiropractic physician, explains how Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
If you have low thyroid and you're taking thyroid medication, the biggest question you should ask yourself is what's causing my low thyroid specifically? If you don't know the answer to that question, it's important to call us. At Red River, we identify triggers that will cause the low thyroid to begin with. One of the most common causes of low thyroid is a disease called Hashimoto's disease. This is an autoimmune disease that is a lot more complicated than just a primary thyroid issue. This is why people will be on thyroid hormone, but still feel little to no improvement because nothing's being done to address the bigger, more complicated problem, which is Hashimoto's. If you have low thyroid or you have autoimmune disease and you're on medication and still don't feel well, call Red River.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today. Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Overwhelmed with Medicare questions? Jessup Insurance, at no cost to you, offers every plan available, guiding you through the entire process. Jessup Insurance is passionate about simplifying Medicare. Call Jessup Insurance, 435-213-3200, or Google Jessup Insurance.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Witches, ghosts, and goblins, it's time for you to play. It's Anderson Seed and Gardens Witches Night Out, Saturday, October 30th from 4 to 8 p.m. It's the annual holiday unveiling event. They'll have the store converted to Christmas. Come set your eyes on amazingly decorated Christmas trees and more. Come snatch up once-a-year holiday sale items. Mark your calendar and join them for a fun evening. Witches Night Out at Anderson Seed and Garden, Logan.
Welcome back to KBN News for the People. Some breaking news out of Utah County, and the reason it's significant in this Utah County is this was one of the few holdouts in the state. But a press conference underway as we speak by Utah County commissioners explaining the passage just today. In Utah County commissioners, unlike our county council, they have a tendency to meet during business hours, which I think is, I don't know, that's always made me a little suspicious. You should meet in the evening when people are off work and can come and watch you do business. But they don't. They meet in the daytime. I think it's risky and probably not an accident, but I'm a cynic, so I distract myself. The story is that Utah County commissioners have passed a resolution today supporting a full repeal and replacement of the death penalty here in Utah. And what they mean by that is they would like, so there have been a lot of ideas thrown out along these lines. And again, the Utah County was one of the last holdouts in this, in the metropolitan area, at least, of the state, where opinions have been sought. And this kind of, the reason this is a significant news event is this basically seals the deal on at least a robust legislative debate. And it's early enough that we could see it pop up in the legislative session. It for sure is going to pop up in the form of a bill that's already out there by Republican Representative Lowry Snow, who's a really good guy, but normally doesn't wade into potentially controversial bills. I was surprised to see his name on this one. His bill is there already. Well, it's proposed. It hasn't been written. But he's announced that he plans to run a death penalty repeal bill in the session kicking off in January. But this announcement today from the Utah County Commission ensures that that bill doesn't just quietly go to a committee and die, which is what happened last time when I think it was a Republican senator, not House representative, that did it last time. It went to the Rules Committee where bills go to die, and it was never heard from again. And this means that it's probably, Snow's bill is probably going to actually survive committee and get a House floor debate. I make no predictions on whether this bill passes, but this would, if it does pass, end the death penalty here in Utah and instead make it a bit easier. It would tweak the life sentences part of our judicial system. And how it would do so is going to be where the real debate is. If a majority, and this will be up to leadership to kind of gauge, but if the House Speaker, for example, which is probably where things would be the most rocky for a death penalty repeal. The Senate, I think, considering the makeup of the Senate and what I know personally about where various senators stand in the Senate, I would guess the Senate would probably pass a repeal bill. But the House, larger body, more members, oftentimes like herding cats, and who knows. But if leadership, if the Speaker of the House and the Majority Whip get a feel that there's majority support for the Democrats, will be on board. Now, there's one Democrat that might not be, but the majority, all but one of the Democrats in the House, all 7 of them or 8 of them, will be on board with this. So the debate's going to be in the Republican caucus, as most things are here in Utah. And if the Speaker of the House gets the sense that there is majority support for repealing the death penalty, for doing away with the death penalty here in Utah, then the debate is going to center, and it's probably going to be lengthy, maybe session long, around what replaces that. Because obviously, judicial system requires a penalty system. And so they're going to have to rewrite portions of criminal statute here in Utah to account for a lack of capital punishment, a lack of death penalty options. And so what the debate will be then is, okay, when and how is a life sentence appropriate? When and how should that be used? They have to write some guidelines for that don't currently exist, because right now all the guidelines are for when the death penalty is used. So, and they would have the option, of course, to take those guidelines that are now in place for when the death penalty can be used here in Utah and just apply them to a life sentence. But there's going to be a debate about that as well. Should they maybe be tweaked a little bit? Are we overusing life sentences as well? As far as cost to the state goes, we already know, and data is just, there's no two sides to this one at all. It's actually cheaper, as much as it doesn't make sense, it is actually cheaper for the state, if this is all you care about. It's actually cheaper for the state to imprison somebody for life, multiple people for life, than it is to put one person to death via the death penalty. But cost-wise, if cost is all you care about. The push on this one is it's coming from an interesting place, because it's a conservative movement that's joining up with what has been a decades-long progressive movement, with the progressive side of things focusing on sort of the human side of it, the humanity of it, and also the fact that, in the last several years, with advances in DNA technology, with advances in other investigative tools that are now more readily available to not just criminal prosecutors, but also and county attorneys' offices, but also the general public and nonprofits, a lot of people have been exonerated from crimes they were accused and convicted of. And so that's something, progressives point to that stuff. On the conservative side, there's a little bit of that humanitarian thing saying, in fact, one state lawmaker here in Utah said, considering the mistakes we see happen within the state at times, no system is perfect, he said, but we do make some pretty big mistakes as lawmakers, as a legislative body. And yet we're saying that we're comfortable with this same system, the state, deciding when someone can die and then killing them. So there is that humanitarian side. For the most of the state lawmakers, it seems to come down to does it prevent crime? Well, the evidence doesn't suggest that. And which one's cheaper? And the evidence supports life in prison as a far cheaper option. And there are a lot of reasons for that, even though, again, it doesn't make sense. There are a lot of reasons that is the fact. So this debate is coming. I didn't think it would happen. The bill is out there. I thought it would get a little discussion and then quietly die in committee. But with this announcement from the most conservative part of the state, Utah County commissioners in a press conference right now as we speak. Unfortunately, they don't believe in live streaming in Utah County, unfortunately, or we'd actually go to this. But right now at the county building in Utah County commissioners are explaining this vote. It happened about an hour ago, and they're just announcing it to the public now, saying they're saying things like, well, this made sense to us, and we surveyed as much as we could the public. They're on board with it, and officially voted today. The Utah County Commission on repealing the death penalty here in Utah. A resolution in support of that was passed today, and that makes the last of the metropolitan counties to weigh in. There's already been support shown by Weber County and the county attorney's office, Davis County, Salt Lake County, Summit County, and now Utah County joining in with that. So it's going to be debated at very least, and it will probably get a floor debate in this upcoming legislative session. That's a long time coming and should be interesting to watch. Check it out. When they actually get some video up, we'll post it on the Facebook page. If it's exciting enough, we'll bring you some highlights tomorrow on the show. But pretty big news, and definitely means it's possible Utah will do away with the death penalty in this upcoming legislative session. What do you think about that? 753-5868. We'll be back right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:40. The news is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Intermountain Healthcare announced today that in order to comply with federal rules, it will require its caregivers to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Speaking to a mid-morning press briefing via Zoom, Dr. Mark Briesacher, Chief Physician Executive for Intermountain, said employees who are unvaccinated by February 9th will be dismissed. He explained the process for Intermountain Healthcare caregivers.
We're starting from a really good place. Over 75% of Intermountain caregivers are fully vaccinated, and almost 85% have started the vaccination process. We care deeply about everyone who works in healthcare, and we've come up with an approach that is really focused on listening, on understanding questions, answering those questions, and helping people through the decision-making process.
Dr. Briesacher said the company's caregivers have been asked to submit any medical and religious exemptions by December 1st.
We've created a flow that is electronic in nature so that the exemption forms can be completed. They also can be printed off, and they can work with their medical providers for their medical exemptions, and then they themselves can attest to the religious exemptions.
Since Tuesday, 22 more Utahns died of COVID-19, including 2 Box Elder County men, one 65 to 84 years of age and one older than 85, and 2 Cache County women, both 65 to 84 years old. From the start of the pandemic, the lives of 3,181 Utahns have been lost to the virus, including 157 in Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties. The Utah Department of Health reported 2,068 new positive cases of coronavirus today, 137 of those in northern Utah. Including today's totals, there have been 546,213 positive cases in Utah. A 40-year-old Providence woman accused of forging checks from an employer for almost a year is reportedly working out a plea deal with prosecutors. Jennifer C. Larson was booked into the Cache County Jail in February before being released on bail. Larson participated in a virtual hearing in court Wednesday morning with her attorney. She was previously charged with 1 count of theft, a second-degree felony, 8 counts of forgery, and 2 counts of computer crimes, all third-degree felonies, along with 2 misdemeanors for computer crimes and unlawful use of a financial card. The crimes occurred during a 10-month period in 2020. Prosecutors claim Larson stole more than $5,000 from her employer. She allegedly took multiple checks from the company and forged them to herself while managing the business payroll. It's also alleged Larson delisted company property for sale online and deleted internet accounts, causing the company's internet history to be permanently lost, causing a substantial reduction in company sales. During today's court hearing, defense attorney Robert Gutke said they had worked out a possible plea agreement in the case. As part of the conditions, Larson will be screened for acceptance in the mental health court. a judge-supervised program where participants undergo treatment and must comply with medication prescriptions. Judge Brian Cannell said he would be willing to transfer the case to mental health court, where it will be determined by the court's board whether or not Larson is admitted into the program. He ordered her to appear again in court November 3rd. Larson did not speak during the brief hearing. She still could face up to 15 years in prison if convicted. And the Utah Festival Opera and Musical Theater has announced the lineup of attractions for its 2022 summer season. That production schedule will include the opera The Magic Flute by Mozart, the musical Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, the opera's Carmen and the Tenderland, and the musical She Loves Me and the Man of La Mancha. That schedule is as close as possible to the one that was originally planned for 2020 but was canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic, according to UFOMT Managing Director Gary Griffin. KBNU News Time is 5:45.
Okay, Piggy, this time that steel building is coming down.
What you got there, Wolfie?
It's a tornado in a tube. How can that be? Your building's still standing. I'm blown away.
A building from Northern Steel Buildings will keep out the big bad wolf, and they don't break the piggy bank. Visit northernsteelbuilding.com to see their quality work or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concept to construction.
KBNU weather for tonight, partly cloudy skies, colder temperatures, overnight low around 30, and then partly cloudy and then becoming mostly sunny on Thursday and mid-50s for the high. It's been to 53, it's 51 right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Roof Rescue. Most of us don't think about our roofs until we see shingles on the ground or water drips through the ceiling. Keep your roof in tip-top shape by working with Roof Rescue. They'll take the time to assess, explain, and work out financial obligations with your insurance. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Hey, it's Al Lewis. We all know buttons make our lives easier. But if you have sleep apnea and can't use CPAP, did you know there's a button that can help you go from this to this? It's called Inspire. It's a small device that works inside your body with just the click of a remote. That's right, a button. If you struggle with CPAP, great sleep awaits at InspireSleep.com. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Well, the leaves are changing, fall is in full swing, and so are the great deals on Ram trucks at Heritage. During Ram Power Days, check out 0% financing for 72 months, available on all new Ram models. Experience for yourself why Ram is the #1 brand loyalty. And right now, we've got discounts up to $5,000 off on Ram, the most awarded light truck in America. Come see why Heritage is the hometown dealer with the biggest deals in Logan, Tremont, and Brigham City.
Hey Cache Valley, fall is in the air and spooky season is right around the corner, which means it's that time of year again. This is Kim with the Logan City Police Department, and we are proud to be joining up with the Bridgerland Applied Technology College of Animal Sciences to hold our dog chipping clinic. The clinic will be held October 30th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the BATC West campus. Pre-registration is $8 per dog and can be done by calling 435-716-9300. Registration at the door will be $10. Remember, all dogs must be on a leash and have proof of rabies vaccinations.
Logan Dental Associates has been serving Cache Valley for over 20 years. They are excited to announce the addition of Dr. Brandon Preby, hygienist Emily Preby, and Dr. Curtis Taylor. Dr. Preby and Dr. Taylor will also continue to work at Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. Now allow for increased hours and advanced services at Logan Dental Associates in Logan. Call and make your appointment with Dr. Brandon Preby or Dr. Curtis Taylor at Logan Dental Associates by calling 435-787-8207.
Trouble with pain, sleep, or anxiety? Want better health? Try CBD7, the CBD experts. You simply can't get this water-soluble CBD at grocery, convenience, or health food stores. Water-soluble CBD7 absorbs 15 times better and tastes great. CBD7 has the only clinically proven formula with real measurable results. Many feel better in minutes. CBD7 is not a drug and has no side effects. Other CBDs just can't do all that. Visit CBD7 today. Learn about CBD and try our best for free.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. I haven't really talked about it in a long time, and we probably should, at least occasionally, still bring this up. We're still in the midst of a pandemic, unfortunately, and today's numbers.
That's why I see masks around.
Not as many as we probably should be seeing, looking at these numbers. More than 2,000 cases today, but here's the really alarming part. 19% positivity of the 10,000 people tested. 19%, almost 20%.
So about one in five are positive.
That's right. Almost 1 in 5 people are positive in the people being tested. Now, obviously, people being tested are being tested for a reason. They don't feel well. They've been exposed. Maybe some people are just testing regularly to be safe. Some employers in Utah here requiring weekly testing. And so there's a lot of reasons a person's being tested, which can, of course, skew or concentrate the numbers. So you have to look for, as Dr. Angela Dunn used to say, the trends. And this is just one day, so don't panic yet. But 19% is pretty dang high for a positivity rate on a Wednesday. Middle of the week usually is when things even out. We see small numbers on Mondays. Huge numbers on Mondays because of the weekend and the collection of data over the weekend. And then things kind of get back to normal, and by Thursday, Friday, you have a good trend build up. You have an idea of where you're at. So, but for Wednesday, 20% positivity in the testing. It's still out there. Great question, too, on all this. And I've asked this question myself, with vaccination rate as high as it is, I think we're close to or just over 70% of the state at this point, which has been the goal. Governor Cox and I did too, hoped and thought we'd get there by June. We didn't, which is unfortunate. But and what's contributing to a lot of this. But a lot of people, I think, right now wondering, the vaccine was supposed to bring this all to an end. Why are we still doing this? Why are we still saying, the put your masks on messages are playing in stores here in Cache Valley again? Heard one just yesterday. And, there's a couple different reasons. One, still a large number of people not vaccinated. Two, the vaccines don't stop you from getting it. They do. There is some evidence it reduces your likelihood of getting it from another person, but you can still get it, and obviously many are. The vaccines stop it from being as big of a deal in your body if you get it.
Having to be hospitalized at all.
You're far less likely to be hospitalized, very much far less likely to die, and growing evidence you're even less likely to get even mildly ill if you've been vaccinated. But the most important part, if you've been vaccinated, is that you are less of a carrier. If you have it, you're still contagious if you've been vaccinated, and you should still, keep yourself away from others while it's active in your body. But you're generating a lower viral load, and therefore you're reducing the opportunity for you to give it to someone else by being vaccinated. So the most important part, of course, is your own protection. It's keeping you from ending up in the hospital or dying, and it's doing so at like a 97% success rate. You can't ignore that success rate. But for others, it's also making you at least less contagious if you get it and don't know it yet. And it's also something that, this will fade. But where it stands right now, these numbers are just, I don't know, jaw-dropping. Robert Gerke, who He used to be a journalist with the Salt Lake Tribune. He covered the legislature. That's how I first got to know him and follow him on social media. But he is now a columnist. He was asked when there was some restructuring to go from the journalism beat to the columnist office or whatever they do. And but he's a numbers-oriented guy. And if you don't use Twitter, you should still look at his Twitter once in a while. It's twitter.com/Robert Gerke. But it's amazing. He's great at this kind of stuff. So he's been tracking what is called a risk ratio with this for Utah. Because we have national risk ratios. We have global risk ratios. But he was curious if it's different in different regions of the state, different counties of the state, where populations are older or younger, where there are more teens or more elderly people like St. George. Are the statistics different? So instead of looking at it statewide, which is normally how we interact with COVID-19 information, he's looking at it, breaking it down county by county, district by district, region by region throughout the state and building this risk ratio chart. He's been doing this for about 6 months now. So his chart's pretty robust and shows some clear trends. But here's basically where it is when it comes to the vaccines. Based on the data that is reported daily by the Utah Department of Health, and number of deaths, number of tests given, number of positive tests within the number of tests given, that positivity rate of 19.3% today. As Bill pointed out astutely, 1 in 5, basically. The risk ratios. If you are unvaccinated, you are 5.5 times more likely to get it in the first place. You are 10.7 times more likely to be hospitalized if you do get it, and you are 18 times more likely to die if you're hospitalized after getting it. And those are the risk ratios, and those are based on nothing but the numbers. For 6 months now, he's been collecting the numbers put out daily, and he's just been putting them in. To calculate a risk ratio is not difficult. I won't try to explain it here because I'll have people falling asleep and Google it. It's a pretty easy thing to do with a calculator. He's just basically crunching these numbers, and then he's visualizing it. He's making these cool little graphs, which is how I like to interact with data, because I don't like to crunch numbers myself. I like to follow people who do. That's basically where we stand. 5.5 almost times more likely to test positive in the first place if you're unvaccinated. 10 times more likely to be hospitalized, 10.7 exactly, to be hospitalized if you do get it, and 18 times more likely to die from COVID-19 if you're hospitalized after contracting it, based on the numbers. Breaking it down by age, this is interesting as well. Of the school-age cases made, kids in basically, he's counting here, 11-year-olds to 18-year-olds. They made 20% of today's total alone, just to give you an idea of kind of where that's sitting. And 11 kids under age 14 have been hospitalized just since Monday, 27 in the past 7 days here in Utah. And then this is the one that blew me away. Breaking the risk ratio down by age, specifically age demographics. If you're 30 to 39 years old, based on data here in Utah, and I don't know why this is different than other parts of the country, and it is, if you're 30 to 39 years old, you are 70 times more likely to die if you're hospitalized after contracting COVID-19. Another way to put that, in Utah, at least this year, was very different in 2020, where 65 and older was where this same type of statistic would be thrown out. This year, if you're 30 to 39 years old, 70 times more likely to die if you end up being hospitalized after contracting COVID-19. I have no idea what's behind that. But just some data for you out there. We'll be back right after this.
Cold weather is here. Let the gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah's fireplace category help you update your home with Napoleon's full line of gas or wood-burning products. Building a new home? Let the professionals at Advanced Fireplace and Stove design and install your fireplace. From traditional to modern, Napoleon has something for every design and every budget. Install a product that will allow your family to make memories for years to come. Stop by at their showroom or visit them at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
This election, vote Keegan for Logan. With support from county and state leaders, Keegan Garrity understands the importance of working together while considering all perspectives. Keegan believes that by following smart growth principles, we can keep the city downtown while preserving the open spaces we love. Keegan is willing to engage with anybody, including those with opposing viewpoints. He's the type of guy you could share a Diet Coke with. Vote Keegan, a voice for the people. Paid for by the committee to elect Keegan Garrity.
As our world changes, we're with you. News Talk KVNU Logan, 102 FM, 610 AM, the voice of North.